Today we'll be talking about the clinical assessment of pain, briefly, very briefly. This can be done either through self-reporting scales, there's a couple of other scales that are a bit more esoteric and more research-based, or by conversation, directed dialogue, if you will. Now, unfortunately, pain scales, self-reporting pain scales, have taken over conversations with the patient. And the problem with this is, well, it's multiple actually. There's a number of things wrong with this. But the main one is that you leave the patient out of the conversation. And given that lawsuits are mitigated by how much the patient likes you, and they like you when you're interested in their problem, you've just shown a complete disinterest by saying, give me a number between 0 and 10. If that's not a reason not to do that, a pure self-interest, pain scales have other problems. They are not more objective than the patient's description because they are the patient's description. There's no difference. You're asking the patient to describe their pain in numbers or in single words or in faces drawn on a sheet of paper. But this is no different from asking them how severe their pain is. So let's have a look at the various scales and the problems that they have. So these self-reporting scales, the first big one, of course, is the numerical rating scale, the NRS. This is a 0 to 10 scale with 10 set to some arbitrary value, 0 being no pain at all. The arbitrary value may be emergency room pain, it may be suicide pain, unbearable pain, the worst pain I've ever felt, and so on and so on and so on. It doesn't really matter because all this is saying to you, my pain is excruciating. It's no different from the patient saying exactly that, or very excruciating. That's all it is. It doesn't give you any more information than the patient telling you. The scales were designed for research, not for clinical use. They've been hijacked by clinicians because it makes their life easier. So the numerical rating scale has a number of problems. One is, is this a logarithmic scale or is it linear? Is the difference between a 1 and a 2 the same as the difference between an 8 and a 9? Every time I ask this question, nobody knows. If you don't know, how does the patient know? Do you ever explain that to the patient? Does the patient ever ask you? It's usually just 0 to 10. In fact, they don't even give the top number a number now. Often that the meaning of a 10 isn't given. Give me a number between 1 and 10 on your pain. Bang, 7. You've got no top end. It also doesn't allow for variability with activities, with hour to hour in a day. Is this your maximum pain? Is it your average pain? What's your minimum pain level? This scale gives none of that. If you're a lazy or overworked clinician and you say, give me a number, and they say 7, and you leave it at that, you'll get no information about this whatsoever. The whole thing is pointless. There's no point to it when you can have a conversation with the patient. The visual analog scale is at the numerical scale, but now you've got it written out on a piece of paper, 0 to 10, with it, lines drawn or not drawn, just a line, and you ask them to put a pencil mark through where they believe their pain is. It's exactly the same. The verbal descriptor scale is not what you would think. It's not a conversation about their pain. It's, okay, your pain is either no pain, mild pain, moderate pain, severe pain, excruciating pain, pick one. So you've cut out the numbers, which is a good thing, but you're not giving them any leeway here. You're not allowing them to explain exactly how their pain's doing. So again, it's not that useful. And then faces of people who don't understand numbers. So you draw a list of pictures of faces, diagrams of faces, and you ask them to pick which face depicts their pain. There's so many cons to doing this. It's really quite amazing. It puts a barrier in communication. You have to explain what a 10 is, what's a 7. You should be explaining the way the scale works. Is it linear, logarithmic? How does it work? Then the patient's got to understand what you're saying, and when they give you a number, is this truly them interpreting what you're saying correctly? So this is another barrier to communication. There's no allowance for variability, as I said, and there's no allowance for it getting worse. If 10's your highest score and your treatment makes them worse, and they say, well, it's worse than it was yesterday, you can't say, give me a number, because you haven't explained that to them. So anything they give you probably isn't going to be accurate. So you're back to them saying it's worse than it was yesterday. It disempowers the patient. You take them out of the conversation, and they're feeling out of the conversation. They're being cheated, actually, and they feel cheated when they're just, give me a number, that's fine, let's move on. So you're losing that bond that you get with a patient, especially for therapists, because the reason I think probably therapists don't get sued as much is because you spend time with the patient. And if you're shortchanging them on their most important problem, their pain, then you're losing that advantage. So these are the pain scales. They're all pretty much the same. They all do the same thing. They aren't any more objective. Now, if we look at a directed dialogue, or a conversation, if you like, but directed, you want to keep them talking about their pain. Don't let them wander about. Control the conversation. It's directed. So what are you looking for here? Well, we've got the intensity of the pain, obviously. Tell me about your pain, and let them do it. If they're getting confused by it, you can say, okay, look, could you tell me if you would think this is severe or is it excruciating? Do you understand the difference between the two? Is it moderate? So you need to do that. You want the quality of the pain as well. Now, I know this isn't necessarily intensity, but you know, if they say lancinating pain, you know this is up and 10. It's just unbearable pain. But it's really not about the intensity unless they're saying it's lancinating. Even coursalgic pain is variable in its intensity. Does the intensity vary? So is it changing during the day and the evening? How is it related to activities? This is pain behaviour now. How is it related to activities? Does it get worse with particular activities? It's worse if I do flexion stuff. It's worse if I do extension stuff. It doesn't matter what I do. This hurts. It hurts. Whatever I do makes it worse. If I do this, it makes it better. What makes it better? Not doing what makes it worse. That type of thing, where you find out the variability. Again, if you put this on a pain scale, then it's going to have to be a much more complex pain scale, because you're going to have its minimum level, its maximum level, and its average level for it to be of any use. And on top of that, to allow for worsening of the pain, it may be progressive. To allow for worsening of the pain, you're going to have to say something like, 10 is the worst that this pain has ever been for you. And then it'll give them a chance to go over that. But give them an upper maximum of 10 doesn't allow for that at all. And as I say, it doesn't tell you anything more than them saying it's excruciating. How is it related to impairment? What can't you do? Is this impairment obligate or elective? Do you choose not to do it because you know you're going to have consequences for doing it? Or can you not do it because the pain is so severe? So this now becomes much more rich. It's richer, the patient spends, and it doesn't actually take an awful lot of time if you direct it properly. But it is richer, the patient feels more satisfied, and you get a lot more information in a simple pain scale. If you have to combine them because your employer wants a number or the insurance people want a number, then what I suggest you do is you don't do that at the beginning. You do it after you've established what their pain actually is as far as intensity is concerned, and then have a conversation about them as to where it should fit in this scale. Now, this scale isn't for you. This is for your employer or the insurance company. It's got no clinical value to you whatsoever. Okay, guys. Take care. Bye.